Hello and good afternoon. I think we're all systems go here. Welcome to our final session of the Ontario Network of CAPC CPNP Projects Online Conference 2025. I am pleased to introduce Maureen Hampton, who is going to share her wisdom and insight and experience on group work skills with us. Hello, Maureen.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
It's nice to have you here.
Yep, so you're just ready to start then?
I'm ready to
All
go.
right.
Yeah, feel free.
Okay, well, thank you for having me and welcome everybody. I'm excited to present at this conference, which is a first for me, and was very honored to be asked by Sydney. So thanks for coming. It's been a great conference so far. Just a little bit about myself. I've worked in an organization called Connect Well, and I work within the program called Connections, and I've worked there for 23 years. I started in their CPNP program, and now I run a birth companion program, and I the lead in 3 parent education groups. And we just started a fathering program that we're very excited about too. So I've also been a domestic violence worker for over 25 years. No longer work for a women's shelter that I did part-time. And I've also been active in the provincial work, co-chairing and chairing our East Zone meetings. I have been part of the committee, um, the main committee for the province, multiple times. And I was part of conference planning when we used to do in-person conferences, and the job shadow program, some of the old programs that we have that we no longer have. But yeah, so I've been very lucky to work where I work. I really love my work, and I love working with the families, and I have a great team that I've worked with for many years too, well over 20 years, a lot of them, like Lee who's on here today. So excited to share some ideas with you about group work. All right, we can try the next screen there, please. So group work is one of my favorite things to do. I find for myself and for the clients I work with, participants, you get the greatest impact in group work because they're learning from their peers, and when they connect with their peers, they feel a sense of belonging so that they're not isolated, especially when you're getting into groups that involves discussions around trauma. Having peers that have experienced some of the same things really validates people and makes them feel they're not abnormal, that okay, and like I've done a lot of domestic violence groups, and that especially for women makes them feel like, okay, it wasn't just me, and it isn't right, and it isn't okay. So it can really be validating. It's a great, I don't want to read each thing that I've written, and I know you guys are reading it. So, but it is a platform to provide a lot of information. It's a tool for skill building, which is really important, and a place to learn to listen, and a place to learn to have confidence to speak your own truth and your things that you've experienced. So and it allows for multiple perspectives. I don't know if you can see the whole screen or not. I think it's you just have to move it down a little bit. Even if your notes show Sydney, it's okay, because
Oh,
I
you
don't think
need
they're
me
seeing the
to,
whole, they're not seeing the whole screen, I don't think.
yeah, I think I've got the whole slide
Okay,
there.
maybe just on mine.
Yeah, at least that
Okay,
I can see.
there you go. All right. So we're gonna just remember with group work, this information is keeping with best practices, but it's always encouraged to further add to it and to develop your own ideas for group, what works for you. It's important to bring your own ideas to it, and be kind of known for your groups that you run, because if a group is successful for a participant, they will spread the word. And most of our referrals come from word of mouth, and most groups we can fill pretty easy. There's the odd one that's, in the winter it's a little harder because of weather and that, but and I just was wondering how many people have, you can go to the next slide there. How many people have done a group? How many people do groups on a regular basis? So Sydney's going to share a survey, and we'll see where we're at.
Oops, sorry. Okay, let me put up a little poll here.
Yes, you can get a copy of the slides. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, are you seeing the poll?
Yep.
Okay. We've got people participating. That's great. We'll give it a few more minutes,
Yeah.
a few more moments.
Looks like we have a lot of group experience, which is great.
Thank you.
Because I really hope we'll have some discussions too as we go. And anybody that has questions or would like to offer something, just raise your hand there and we'll make sure that we make this an interactive.
Okay, I think we've got a
Discussion.
good percentage of people who have maybe just one more beat. Last chance to get
Okay.
your. Okay, and I'll end the poll,
Super.
share the results. Are you seeing that there?
Yep. Open groups are usually the more popular group because they're less formal. And we're going to talk about the different groups, but we have a lot of open groups as well. And then specific closed groups. So yeah. And group work is something that sometimes organizations are a little nervous to open it because they don't know how to even where to begin. So if anyone ever has any questions and they want to start a group where they are, you can always contact me. I'm happy to, help in any way I can to get you going because I really think group work is so important. Well, that's great. Well, thank you everybody for taking part in that. So we'll just start with the next slide there.
Sure.
So group formats, basically we have in-person or groups and they're indoor or outdoor. We have virtual groups, it could be on Zoom or Teams. And we can also do phone groups where you don't have any visuals. And I've done a few of those and I was surprised that they worked as well as they did. But the platforms you use can be a little more complicated, but we'll get into that. All right, the next one. So types of groups. So there's informal and formal, which is, formal is there's a little bit, maybe more, strategies or maybe more rules for the group. Open or closed, large or small numbers. And some can be ongoing. So it's a weekly group that's run all year, or it could be a limited. It's a 6-week group. It's an 8-week group, or it could be a group that's run 3 times a year. Because every group has different goals and it's really important to find out how it works best. So these are kind of some of the basics that you do for groups. All right. So informal groups, you can go next, there we go. So informal groups, usually a drop-in format, casual settings, and they're open. So people may not have to register. Sometimes they may have to register, but normally it's a drop-in kind of group. Like I know at our place, we run Good Food for Healthy Baby, and it's a drop-in, weekly drop-in, and you don't have to pre-register. Does anyone have any of these kind of groups at their organizations? They usually have to meet a criteria. Thank you, Lee. And I can't see other people, but Doya, Pauline.
Yeah, and a couple people, Jen answered yes
Jen,
in the
great.
chat. Some yeses coming through. And are you able to
Super.
see the chat, Maureen? Or
Yeah, I can go on and see. Okay, great.
yeah,
So these kind of groups likely meet a criteria. So, for our Good Food for Healthy Baby program, a woman must be pregnant or have just had her baby if she's been part of the group prenatally. You belong to the Connect Well or Connections team in that sense that they're part of Connections families. Some of them may or may not have to register. We don't register our Good Food clients ahead of time, but you could if you wanted to. And some organizations like to know who's coming, so you must pre-register. Maybe ongoing or a limited number of weeks. So I think we close like our Good Food for Healthy Baby program. We close a few weeks a year, like March break, sometimes where it may not be best suited because there'd be too many children coming because of March break, or we might close for a couple of weeks in the summer. Other groups are closed all summer, like our play groups, because they'd end up being too large with all the kids at home from school. Some have predetermined topics, so they may do a calendar, or you may have like this week is cook week, the next week is a presentation week, and that's how we run our Good Food. Some of our play groups that are also drop-in, they have education, I think 3 out of the 4, and the 4th is they cook a meal together. And so it really fits And this is where you can get the clients really involved to say, you know, what do you want to learn at this group? Really make it their group. Let them bring in their favorite recipe to cook, or you could have them, is there anybody that would like to teach something? Someone could teach crochet, or someone could teach how to cook a certain meal, or someone could, and that way they really feel a sense of ownership over their own program, and really helps to build self-esteem. And, you know, it can even be added to the resume if they're trying to build a resume of some form. Peer-to-peer teaching in informal groups is the key. We know that people learn better from each other than they do from us, because you know, we can come off sometimes as we're the experts, we're the teachers, but when someone learns from each other, it's more powerful and more likely to actually you know, change the behavior. I remember in group, a mom was feeding her baby, I think it was like Kool-Aid or something in the bottle, and one of the moms said, you know, I did that too, and my children's teeth rotted, and we had this big discussion about propping bottles and what we should have in bottles. And I really believe that mom probably would not have changed her decision on what was in the bottle if it had been me teaching, or someone else. So I think it's great when it's peer-to-peer. And you may work with partners as well, like the health unit, or you may have guest speakers come in. We used to have, you know, someone come in and make cleaning products that are more environmentally friendly, or through our community health center, health unit comes in, may have a dietitian that visits, may have a public health nurse that can come in and, you know, help with specific health issues, that kind of thing. So informal groups are really, can be really formed to be what's best for your agency and for the families you work with. And on the next slide, we get into what a formal group is. So I'm not sure how many of you run formal groups. There's usually 2 facilitators, and you do need to pre-register for this group. It meets a certain criteria. So I know some of us, we run the Connections program. We call it Making the Connections because we have the same name as the Connections program that was developed by Breaking the Cycle in Toronto. We also offer Circle of Security, and we offer, now we're offering a men's group, which is kind of like the Connections program, but a bit more catered to men, and it is a pilot, so we're still developing it. It's usually requires some kind of pre-interview, so I may call them. I may not have time to go out and visit everybody that's coming in the group, but a pre-interview allows us to understand things about, and we're going to get into that, about, you know, maybe group readiness, or why they want to take part in the group, and if they're ready, because not all people are ready for closed formal groups. There's usually a specific agenda each week. Workbook is provided. We provide workbooks, and we found the men and the women both like that, and giving extra resources in there that they can use and follow along our agenda. It could be ongoing, but it's rarely that a closed group, a formal group, is ongoing. It's usually 3 to 4 times a year, and numbers are usually limited, because sometimes we think filling a group of 12, 15 people, wow, that's great, but it's my experience that people aren't willing to share as much when you get over 6 people, because there's just too much, and you know, there has to be a trust in the group for people to share honestly, or share past traumas, or share difficult things they're going through at the time. So I really encourage you, if you can, to keep numbers smaller in the formal groups, and you'll get more out of it, and the families definitely get more from it. And there's also usually a specific way to set up a room, and we'll talk about that too. Anybody have any questions or anything? All right. So the next one, in an open group, like we said, it's a drop-in with registration. Offer food if possible. You can go to the next slide there, Sydney.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Just a little bit of a repeat of what I've said. It's not usual to have a mandatory attendance. Members can join at any time, and they don't actually have to attend each week. You want to encourage them, maybe with a reminder call and that kind of thing, because the more they attend, the better. But it isn't like they're taking a space up for someone if they don't show up. And again, agency partnerships, you might give away, have like food voucher giveaways, prenatal vitamins, especially in the CPNP program. We partnered with someone, so we actually get free vitamins from this company. And I'm not sure what the company name is. Lee might know. But it's a great partnership. If you join up with them, we get all our vitamins for free, and that saves us quite a bit of money a year. Vitamin Angels, Lee said. Thank you, Lee. Also giving away clothing exchanges maybe, or someone might donate something. And we also do, if you guys want to help with dishes, whoever helps clean up, we have a little draw here. And that can actually motivate people to help with the cleanup or the setup. May or may not have childcare. Again, that takes a lot of money sometimes, but childcare is a huge barrier for people, and it's nice for moms to have a little break so that they can pay attention and learn in the group instead of caring for young children that are busy. It's a little different when it's babies. They're holding them or someone else can hold them, but yeah. So the next one is about closed groups. So again, mandatory pre-registration, pre-group interview, specific mandate. And if it's a group that has anything to do with trauma, I really recommend you don't have children or babies in the room. Babies can really pick up, as the feelings from their mother, and a mother that's holding a baby may not be willing as easily to share the trauma that she's been through. So we really recommend no children or babies. It can be difficult. If we can't afford childcare at the center, we will offer them $20 for childcare if they can arrange it. There is an expectation of attendance due to limited numbers, so we really want to make sure in their the pre-interview that they are able to make a group for 6 weeks and identify some of those barriers to it. Yes, I'm going to talk about, Michelle, we're going to talk about the specific questions. That's a great question. And may include an evaluation at the end of group, and it may include a participation certificate. I find some of them really like that. And actually, I've been in a woman's house where she had all 4 of our evaluations in a frame in her living room. So a lot of them take a lot of pride, and it gives me goosebumps actually, because we don't realize sometimes the satisfaction someone can get in participating in something like that and feel really good about themselves, especially if they've made decisions about their life that they may not have made before taking these kind of groups. So yeah. So the next slide there. So some of the suggested pre-interview questions, like Michelle, was a good question to ask, because it is important. So I always start off with, how did you hear about this group? Did you hear it from a friend? Did you see it? And that helps us to know where they saw our material. So what promotion is working. If they say if no one ever says I saw the poster, then we know we're putting our posters in the wrong place. Most people come from word of mouth, but it is nice to know I saw it on social media, that kind of thing. And then asking the question, what makes you want to take part in this group? Because usually, like on our posters, we put some of the topic headings. We don't go into, we don't want to scare them off, but when I do the interview, I tell them we're going to talk about healthy and unhealthy relationships. And then I may say, have you ever been in an unhealthy relationship? And it's a great way. And some of them will say no, and then in group, they'll disclose all this horrific abuse they've been through. So sometimes in the pre-interview, you don't really get all the information, but with some experience, you learn you can sense it. And making sure they want to take part in the group for the right reason. It's, I hear sometimes, well, my friend Sue is going. Well, that isn't really reason enough to go, because, I would still allow them to come, but I would then maybe talk about some of the topics and ask them if they're interested in learning about these things. I may ask them, what experience do you have with unhealthy relationships? Or have you ever learned about self-care? Do you know what self-care is? Do you know like some of the key factors of child development? Some of the things that we're going to talk about, I would actually just state out loud and to see where they're at, because a lot of them have never learned about some of the things we talk about. And so it's good to know if you're starting right at the basic stuff. And also a question that's great is, what would it take to make you feel comfortable to share and contribute? Because some of them are like, I'm nervous. I've never been in a group. And so when I ask that question, they would say, not a lot of people. making sure that people are confidential and they won't talk about what is said. So that kind of thing. Any barriers is important. So do you have childcare needs? And then you try to problem solve transportation needs. Transportation is one of our biggest barriers, and we spend a lot of money on transportation because I live in a rural area and we have to bring people from different areas. I word it usually, do you have an unsupportive family member? Or I might say, how does your partner feel about you attending this group? And that's when she might say to you, I will be hiding this from him. It's important you don't leave a message for me, that kind of thing, because you want to make sure it's safe for anybody that's in any kind of abusive relationship or unhealthy one, because they may not identify it as abusive. And then of course the question of allergies. Do you have any special needs? Because you don't want to serve cucumbers if someone's deathly allergic to cucumbers. So it's that kind of thing that it just helps you plan your menus and that if you are able to serve food and that. And let's see on the board here. Yes, for Lee, yes, I always recommend closed groups, especially if trauma topics are being shared. If it's casual and you're talking about, diet through pregnancy or breastfeeding, those kind of things, those are kind of universal things that are safe to talk about. But if you're asking someone to share childhood troubles or childhood trauma, you want that to be a closed group so that who's coming and what's expected of them. Now, for a closed group, I usually allow 2 groups, and then I would close the group after that. So the first group, someone might be sick or someone can't make it that first one. So I usually try to keep it light and we do paperwork. We might do consents, that kind of thing. We might share a meal together, just kind of getting used to each other and relaxing a little bit. Maybe go over the agenda. If you have any surveys, like we take part in the surveys from breaking the cycle. So that's when we would do our long surveys. And then the next group, we would start with topic. And we would allow people to only miss probably the first one. And if they really couldn't make the first 2, but really wanted to come, we may make an exception, but we would try to make up the first group individually with them if we could. Virtual and online, we're going to talk about that. That'll be coming up. Anybody else have questions? Okay.
I don't see any, no.
I guess we can go to the next one.
Sure.
Oh, and when you ask are you ready for group? Are you identify if they're really busy in their life? Like, do they have a lot of appointments with children? They may not have childcare. Are they exhausted? Are they going through a trial of some form? Are they trying to get custody of their child? Are they going through a separation? Those are not the times to put somebody in a closed formal group, especially trauma-informed way or a trauma group. It's better to wait till they're through some of that, and you can always say, I don't know if this would be ideal for you with all that's going on, but I'm happy to put you on the list for our April group. Would you be interested in that? And most people will say, yes, absolutely. Actually, that would work better for me. And then be sure to call them when you're setting up your next group. So, all right. So when we're talking formal closed groups, in the very first group, we always discuss the purpose of the group. This group is to help teach about, like I'll use our Connections program one. This group is to help teach about healthy relationships, self-care, how violence and unhealthy relationships impact children, how unhealthy relationship may impact your substance use, or your ability to remain sober if that's what your goal is. And then we talk about where the funding came from, and we may talk about how long this group has been running and why we like it. It's important to introduce the facilitators and their experience that I've done this group a number of times. This is my favorite work to do. I always tell them, those kind of things. Share a little bit about yourself, because then you want to make a good connection with all the people that are at that table. You may say, I have 2 children as well, and they're this, or I have a grandchild. I talk about my grandson Leo a lot, and I'm able to relate to them with small children because he is now in my life. So you explain the role of the facilitator, which is really important, that my job is to keep you on track, that I can challenge you. Sometimes I may challenge you in a obviously respectful way, and that I will call out someone who's not following the guidelines that we develop. we would explain what a check-in is. I think this is an important piece. It took me a lot of years to learn this, because if you just say, hi, just introduce yourself again and tell us how your week went. If they've had a major crisis in their week, like I went to court, I lost custody of my child, that is not the time you want people to start sharing, because it starts to unravel and you don't want to cut them off. So it's best to teach them how to do a check-in right off the start. This is a time for a brief introduction of yourself and how your week has been. And you might say, has your week been on a 0 to 10 scale? You might use that, or you might say, you could just say, could you share if it was good or bad? And if it's bad, you could maybe follow up on break with them, or you could follow up after group with them, or you could phone them later in the week to say, I noticed in your check-in you said you had a bad week. I really want to hear about it. So that at least they feel validated, because they may not have anyone to talk to about, but not a time to share it in the beginning. And at the end, checkout is the same thing. We always end our checkout as, thank you for participating today. I know we had a heavy topic and we want to know how you are. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, 1 being not so great, where are you? And if anybody says 2 or 3, maybe a 2, then I would follow up with them before they leave to make sure that they are grounded and ready to go home to children or to stress. And that's really important, I think, especially if you're talking about anybody's childhood or trauma. Yeah. We can go to the next slide there.
Sure. There was a question from Lee about, are the
Okay,
guidelines
yeah, I think that's on the next
or...
slide.
Oh, sure.
He's ahead of me
Let's
here.
go. Let's go. There we go.
So establishing goals always is done with the group members. We do it separately on one of those large sticky pages or one of those flip charts, where we say things like, okay, this is your group. We're going to set some goals on the group. What do you hope to learn here? So someone might say, I want to learn about self-care because I don't know what that means, or I want to learn about healthy relationships because I'm not sure I'm in one. And then if sometimes they all sit there, stare at you, and you have to really pull at them. So you might say things like, what changes would you like to make in your life? If you could change one thing, what would you do? Or you could say, why did you want to be a part of this group? And that's where it starts to come out. My friend told me she learned about this, and that's why I'm here. So you write everything, and I really encourage you to write how they present it to you. Sometimes as facilitators, we might change what they say, we might paraphrase what they say. Really important to write their words down so they feel heard. If they say, I don't know what self-care is, that's not a very good example, but you want to be sure to not paraphrase what they say. You want to be sure to quote them and write what they say down, and it really makes a difference when it comes to sharing. And then on the next page, you would do the group guidelines. So what's important to you in a group? What would make you feel safe in speaking? And if they don't come up with these, you can add them. Facilitators can add them as well. So we're very strict about the confidentiality, and we state it very firmly that there are no exceptions. If you break confidentiality, you will be excused from the group. And if it's if it was like a severe breach of confidentiality, we might suggest that it could end up barring you from groups in the future. That was more so at the shelter where I worked, because women's safety were at risk. And with one of our groups, Making the Connection, safety is an issue. So really have to drill it home that this is serious and we take it seriously. And we've had a couple of breaches of confidentiality, and they have been asked to leave the group, but there's never been one that was so severe that really was kind of scary in that. So no, Making the Connection would not be the group for parents to bring their children, because this is a trauma group. So I know there are counselors that work with babies in the room, and they think, well, the baby can't really understand, but babies pick up on energy from mom. And so it's our policy during like closed, formal, structured groups that we don't have children in the group. And if their child doesn't cope in a childcare room, mom would actually have to go down to the childcare room. They wouldn't be allowed to bring their child in with them unless it's like Circle of Security. They might be able to, something like that, but not in like our Making the Connection group. That there would be no exceptions for children in the room. We might, we ask parents to turn off their phones. They may leave it on the counter, like on the table, and they can answer it. But you will see that odd person pick up their phone, start texting when someone's talking. So really disrespectful, and also may shut down that other mother from speaking. So I would call them on it. I would say, if you have to take a phone call, please step out of the room. And it's awkward to do as a facilitator because nobody wants to be the heavy, but it's really important because it's the person speaking that is number one right now. They need to be heard and they need to be validated that people are actually listening to them. So we call people on it, and usually you only have to call them on it once. And we understand that parents may have to take a phone call from the school. And we can say, you're welcome to pick up your phone if it's ringing, but you have to step out of the room to take the call. And that it's usually, those guidelines are usually followed. We ask parents not to give opinions because, well, this is what you should do. Oh, I know how to fix that, because their opinions may be wrong and their opinions may not be best practices either. So we only ask for opinions if a mom says, is it okay if I ask the group for an opinion? Then we can. We try to correct if someone says, oh, do sleep training or something like that, or just let them cry it out or something like that. We would correct that and say that isn't really what we practice anymore. But so be careful when you're asking for a group opinion, because they're not always, like I said, best practices. Another big one is the sidebar conversations. People start talking. It's really easy to do. I've done it in a group setting too. But again, if someone's talking and then two other people start talking, whispering to each other, that could really shut down the parents speaking. So I would say, remember the guidelines, no sidebar conversations. And they stop. They're kind of annoyed at first, but then they get why I did it. And then when they're talking, they would get the same respect. So that's important. And figure out which one of the facilitators is skilled at doing that, because not all facilitators are comfortable doing that. So like I work a lot with someone named MJ, and we're both pretty comfortable with it. So the wandering person, that can be difficult. We've had that experience where someone's up clearing dishes, and then the next thing you know, they're up looking out the window, and then they're going in the kitchen, and you're really not sure what's happening, and it becomes very distracting in the group. So I would let them wander for the first half of the group, and then I would go in to them at break and say, hey, I noticed you're having trouble sitting at the table. Is there anything I could do to help you? Because it can be distracting to wander. And some of them say, like we've had a couple of people, someone says, oh, I get antsy. And I know some places have the bouncy ball that people can sit in, or sometimes we'll give them a fidget toy. Or I'll say, you can color or doodle on your paper if you want, because that helps them stay focused and stay present at the table. Because it's really distracting when you get someone wandering around a lot. Yes, Pauline, thank you. The fidget boxes work well, and they're not that expensive, and they are really a great tool. Usually we have a scheduled break time. MJ and I usually go and we say about halfway, and we'll kind of put the break in where it fits. Because sometimes it's hard if you say, well, at 2 o'clock we're having a break, and then 2 o'clock comes and someone's divulging something really personal. We don't want people just standing up saying, okay, it's break time. So try to not pin it down and just say, we'll alert you when break time. And I usually give a 10 or 15-minute break time, depending if we're getting through the material. And in the group, we always say it's okay to leave the room, but please don't leave the building. We don't want to worry about you. Don't get in your car and go home. So, and if someone suddenly leaves, one of us will usually leave the room and follow them out to make sure that they're stable and that they're not triggered too badly. And if they just need a few minutes, we'll leave them and we'll come back in. And if they're really triggered, we'll stay with them until they're grounded again. So that's important, because some of the information can be really tough. Any questions so far? All right, so the next page, please. So virtual groups. So virtual groups that are informal, I don't know if people have done, they kind of become more common during COVID. We didn't actually do any virtual groups at Connections. I don't believe we do any now. I have done virtual groups for other agencies, and they can be trickier, and not my favorite thing to do. But depends again what you're talking about. If it's informal, it can be a nice, if it's a drop-in sort of thing, it's good. They have to they have to pre-register with you, because you need to be able to send them a link to your Zoom meeting or Teams meeting. But they can come, they can leave when they want, they can join one week but not another week. They have to belong to some kind of criteria. So if it's a group on assertiveness, they would have to want to learn about assertiveness. I mean, some places have like an open discussion group online just so people can connect and they decide when people are on the call what they're going to talk about. That works too. Might be ongoing weekly, or it could be a limited number of weeks, or it could be something that's offered multiple times a year. Like I said, predetermined topics, casual, and they may have a guest presentation. So today we have someone joining us who's going to talk to us about best sleep practices for your children or something. I know some places do run virtual groups for violence against women or IPV groups. I always feel that it could be dangerous for the person that is in an abusive relationship because you really don't know who's listening. You really don't know who's off camera. So I would hesitate myself to do that kind of group online. Any questions about that?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay, so the next slide is virtual groups with a more formal close. Again, it would have to have a mandatory registration, a pre-group interview to see if they're ready for group, that same kind of questions. And most importantly, safety on doing online. Are your kids hearing you? Are you doing this around a partner? Is there somewhere else you could go to do this group? If I know in COVID, they did offer violence against women groups and at the shelter I worked with. So they really were very careful to determine. So we had women would go to their car and do the group in their car on their phone. Not ideal. Again, don't want to be doing this kind of group in front of children or babies, even if they're playing on the floor around you. It's not ideal. And there is an expectations of attendance. And again, maybe evaluated, but it is, again, the highly confidential group. And again, very hard to control if you really can't see who's listening, who's not. So always cautious with that. The next group. So virtual groups online structure, they're interesting. I don't know if people have done that, but asking participants to remain on screen at all times. I've had people leave the screen. You have no idea where they went. You're looking at their living room and you're not sure what's happened. I've had literally women spark up a joint on screen or bring out a bong and start using it on the screen, which can be really triggering for other people. Even smoking a cigarette for some women is triggering because they don't smoke in their home. So now they want a cigarette and they're asking for a break so they can go out for a smoke. It's a hard question to ask because they're in their homes. They have a right to have a cigarette if they want. But if you could ask them to reframe, or you could always say, we can always take 2 breaks if someone would like that. And because it is triggering, and I've had messages from women after group to say that wasn't cool with the bong on the table or that kind of thing, or pouring an alcoholic drink in front of people. It depends, again, who you're dealing with and who you're working with. But I don't think it hurts to ask. And if someone is really saying, no, I got to smoke, then you might say, okay, we're going to take 2 breaks so you can have a cigarette. But again, figure it out for yourselves but try to work with them. Advise them to get a space quiet, remind them about confidentiality. Can anyone else hear or see the screen? Ask participants to mute their voice in between because sometimes people are talking, they don't realize they're on, like we've all experienced that. And using the hand emoji if they have a comment, it kind of prevents that over talking. And asking participants to not walk around with their computer. Yes, I've actually seen someone go to the bathroom in front of us, the whole works. And so it's can be very distracting. So online groups are not my favorite thing. All right, the next part. So the key elements for success, again, in my opinion, I've obviously done some research on this as well, but a strong facilitation is important. And even if you have one strong facilitator and another facilitator that's learning, they will soon develop into strong facilitators. And I find in some agencies, that's when they'll separate them because then they can do more groups but if you have 2 people that really work well together, like I have a coworker that I work well with, and I really enjoy group with her because we can read each other's body language. We know how to signal to each other if somebody we think it might be in crisis or going into a crisis. So it can be really good when you have a good, strong facilitation partnership. And make sure you debrief together and talk about what worked, what didn't work, and be honest with, I found you disagreed with me a lot, and I'd really appreciate it if you would, talk to me privately about if I'm saying something you don't agree with, just make a note and we can talk about it after because then you want to, make sure that we're accountable to each other and reflecting on our work, that we're doing the best work we can and supporting each other to say, wow, that was a tough situation. You handled it really well. I think that's important too, that you're giving positive feedback to your partner and it makes it stronger for the next group. Have a welcoming atmosphere, humor, maybe some music playing when they come in. We can't always control what's on the walls and that, but if you can think about like I always use Breaking the Cycle. They have a beautiful room for groups and they have pictures of children up and their children too. And they've had permission to do that, of course. But be welcoming and make sure it's an inclusive environment and use humor. We like people have told us they can't believe how much we laugh in our group, but we do use a lot of humor. It keeps things a little calmer, and especially in if you're talking about hard stuff. Like obviously we're not going to crack a joke in the middle of someone disclosing, but we do use humor a lot and they seem to appreciate that. We always serve food. It doesn't matter if it's a bowl of popcorn, which isn't very much money. If it's an early morning group, we might serve cooked oatmeal in a slow cooker. We might have toast or bagels and cream cheese, something that isn't a lot, or we could, and if all you can afford is a snack, do apples, popcorn, pretzels, that kind of thing that doesn't cost too much. A group with their mothers and fathers, that would be more likely a drop-in group. Like that might be like we have a few of those groups running. We have play groups, we call them. We have Wednesday group, which is for parents who may not have custody of their children, so their children would be there. It's a place for them to have a visit with their children, and we would help guide them through, this is how you would eat with your children at the table. This is maybe some play ideas we do for you. We have I think a mom and baby group now where they come and sit either in a circle in chairs or on the floor, and they discuss how to interact with an infant. So they might show them, the serve and return, or how to, that you could read to a child. We might have one person read a book and we all come together. So I don't personally run those groups, but they're very popular and they're important because it's a way for us to see if the parent is having trouble interacting with their child, or if we don't diagnose attachment disorder, but we can see if there, a lot of us, if you have the experience, you can see that there may be some attachment issues, and we could work with the parent to see if we could help with that. Does that answer your question, Mary? And I think it's great that you have an elder come in. How great would that be? Yeah. Thank you. Providing childcare, again, not an easy task with limited funding, and that can sometimes be the last thing we think about when we want to give a group. But childcare is an important piece. I think it's absolutely necessary, and I wouldn't run a group on any trauma-based group. I would not run a trauma-based group with any children in the room, and I've said that. So helping to reduce the barriers, maybe and when you're doing groups, you can suggest, like, I could take care of your child one day, maybe you could take care of my child one day, and not for these groups necessarily, but just helping moms figure out ways that they can get a bit of a break. Yeah, speaker, as Lee said, yep, we get speakers coming in that have the capacity to have child activities in a separate room so the parents can fully benefit from the content. Absolutely. Yeah. Transportation, I guess, like in the cities, you can give bus tickets out or cabs. We only have a very expensive transportation service. It's and we pay for that, or we ask them to have their Ontario Works okay it, so that Ontario Works pays for it. And sometimes we give parents mileage, and if they can drive somebody, even better. So that saves us some money too. Yeah. Any questions on that? I know we're getting close to our time here. So on the next page, we're talking about continuing the key elements for success. Up-to-date worksheets and I think they receive them better if they're in color. Not all places have printers that can print in color, but we use the Mother's Mental Health Toolkit a lot, and that is my favorite piece to find resources for. We use it for for the dads groups, and we've used it in the parents groups, and we always get really good uh, messaging on it that it's a positive tool. If you don't have that book and you'd like a copy of that book, please email me and I'm happy to send them to you. I have quite a few. I also do a training on how to use the Mother's Mental Health Toolkit. And I've already done that. I think we can, Sydney could get you the link if that's something you'd be
That's
interested in.
right.
I can also talk to you one-on-one if anyone has any questions about it. When we did the fathering group, we weren't sure if they'd like the binder, and they were more excited about the binder than the women were. I couldn't believe it. They were like, "This is ours. We can take this home. Oh my God, this is great!" And they were writing notes through the whole group, so that was kind of neat to see. But it's a good place to put an agenda, some resources. I always have some note pages in it, and there's a great note page in the Mother's Mental Health Toolkit, and it actually says note page at the top, so it's kind of neat. We always give a pen and we give a name card, and they put their name card out, and we ask them to write it on both sides of the card so that everyone in the room can see it. And if you have any extra money or you can get a few donations, it's nice to give a giveaway if possible. So we had brought in some money for our Making the Connection group. So on the self-care day, we gave an adult coloring book and some nice colored pencils. And we said to them, keep these away from your children. This is just for you. And they thought that was kind of cool to have. Or we might give a yoga mat, or might give some some hand lotion or some Lipsil. It doesn't have to be a lot, and it's just something for them to have. We gave out some cooking equipment at times, like we got Canadian Tire to donate some cookie sheets to us, so that gives them a new cookie sheet and may encourage them to make cookies with their kids, that kind of thing. Checking in with participants, sending reminders. I'm not great at that, but I have a coworker who's amazing at that. And check in with those members who scored low on checkout. That's always important. And you could say to them, what's your favorite meal? And they might say pizza. So you could do build your own pizza, which again, isn't as expensive as we think if depending on the numbers in the group. Make referrals. So if someone is really struggling with behavior with their child, if you can, ask them if they'd like a referral to the behavior program that you know of, or mental health, or counseling, or whatever. It's, my motto is refer, 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 and get familiar with what's in your community, so you can instantly, come to it and say, oh, that would be a good referral for them, and then follow through with the referral, and then follow through again if you can to see if they actually heard from the referral or if they actually met with them. And always thank people at the end of group for sharing their personal stories. Validate that it's difficult to share. Self-disclosure is a personal decision in group work or with working with clients. And I teach communications. Well, I facilitate an online course at Algonquin, and it talks about the times to use self-disclosure. And there's always quite a debate with students about whether you should or you shouldn't. I think if it helps the client understand that most people go through these situations, it's okay to share a story. If you're sharing the story because you're being triggered by what's being said and you want to get it off your chest, that's not the right time to self-disclose, because that might be something to discuss with your co-facilitator after group to say, wow, that really triggered a memory for me. But sometimes it's good for them to hear, you might say, yeah, my parents weren't really good with my emotional health. They really took care of me physically, but not so much with my emotions. They were uncomfortable with my emotions. It kind of says, wow, so even they've experienced that. So even those people that are here to teach us have experienced this. And it keeps us part of the group versus being separated as the teachers or the ones with the information. And it keeps us connected, that we're all in it together and that we all have experienced some form of something. So again, a personal choice. If you don't want to do it, there's no pressure to do it. But sometimes I've had people say that really helped when you said that, because I realized that if it could happen to you, it could happen to anybody, so that's just the thought. Evaluating is always good if you're trying to apply for money. And evaluations can be simple. They can just be a list of questions. And if you have somebody who knows how to score them in your agency, that's always good, but it's always just good for feedback. And then you could ask them to refer their friends, or you could say, if you refer a friend, I'll give you, like in our drop-in groups, sometimes we say, if you bring a friend to the drop-in, we'll give you an extra $10 gift card. I've had women bring 5 friends with them to get that extra 5 cards. So it can be a great tool to use. So yeah, so any questions? And maybe we could just, the next screen is, I'll get you to share the next one.
Do you want me to
there.
move it forward to the
please.
next one?
Thank
Sure.
you.
Where are we at?
So never underestimate the power of group. It's not the you, it's the in the group, it's the we. I really like that slogan because I find that especially in our Making the Connection group, which is called the Connections Program from Breaking the Cycle, almost every group we have a woman leave her partner, and it's always so like powerful for us because, and for that woman, because she's making a choice. Not saying she won't go back. It depends how many times she's left before, but when you can relate to a mother, the impact on her child, and she can see herself in her child, and that's what that group does. That sometimes helps them to have the courage to go. And then we offer support in between groups, and we'll support them through anything that they're going through. And we've been lucky. We've seen a few, every group, we usually, it's not every group, but almost every group, one woman leaves her partner, and we help her with, safety planning. And, we're always surprised, but it's very rewarding for us, but it's good for that woman. And sometimes they announce it in group, and then it really and can really empower other women to have that courage as well, which is not easy. We might make referrals to our shelter programs, and we always offer to support them in between groups, and that if they need ongoing support, we're always sure to set that up for them. Yeah. So maybe now we can, before we go to the final questions, I just want to say a special thank you to Sydney Bell for all her support and hard work in our CAPC and CPNP community, and, helps me with my technology issues. And I know I can always call Sydney if I have questions. And you've just been a wonderful addition to the CAPC CPNP world, and we all really value you. And all to everybody that came to this presentation today, thank you so much. It means a great deal to me. And on the last slide is my
Okay.
Yeah, and one more.
And then there we go.
If you want to reach me, I know it's hard to see my email there, but it's mhampton@connectwell.ca. Feel free to send me an email if you'd like one of the Mother's Mental Health Toolkits, or if you have any questions, or if you'd like a copy of this slideshow, I'm happy to share it. And this is my phone number you can reach me at. And maybe we could take down the slides, and if we have a few minutes, if anyone has any questions or would like to discuss any question they have, I'm happy to answer. I know you're getting tired as being the last group of the day.
Oh, we have some time.
Great. Anybody have any questions about group, or would like to share a funny experience they had doing a group, or any questions?
I'll just point out something really basic. I just appreciated your sort of advice and tips, and even like the name card. I've done that in groups, and I'd never thought to put it on both sides.
Yeah.
Like,
and most people just put it on the one side, and I always say if you turn it to the side a little bit, everybody can see your name, because I do it for myself because I forget names, and I don't want to call someone the wrong name, so that's really just for my own self, but it really helps. And we usually get them to use a marker, and we ask them to draw a picture on it that means something to you. So someone might put a picture of 2 stick children, or they might say they might have a flower on it, or they might have like a cooking pot on it because they love to cook. So it just makes it personal, and it's a great introductory thing for them to do. Yeah, and we usually use yellow cards, and a black marker or a red marker. They might pick a color. Yeah, so just some of the harder cardboard paper. Yeah.
Thank you. I got distracted. I'm putting your information in the chat, if that's okay. And of course, my computer froze up a little bit. There we go.
Super. Well, thank you, Blanca. That was very nice of you. And thank you, Rebecca. That's great. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
comments,
and
Maureen?
it's, add things to it that you think. Use your intuition to build group, because group work comes with experience, right? And you might have a great idea that you really feel strongly about, and other people may not ever consider that. So build your groups, and of course, update, and talk with your coworkers about what works in your group. And if you
Mhm.
see a group that's always full, find out, talk to that person, talk to those facilitators, and say, how do you get all, like we have one person who just keeps the drop-in groups full at all times. And I think it's her personality. She's just the right facilitator for it. And she keeps it light. Where I do more of the heavier groups, and
Mhm.
it takes sometimes a lot of recruiting to do it. But, use our participants. They know who needs to come to group. And say to them, if you bring a few people, if you can get a few people to call me, I'm going to give you an extra gift card for that. You'd be surprised how quickly you'll get some calls, because they're the wealth of information. They know who's out there, and talk about it at other groups. I send all my posters to all our drop-in groups, and my coworkers recruit for me, which is great, and I recruit for them as well. So use social media to put posters up, and I know the last training is coming up for this year for, I think in early April, for at Breaking the Cycle. So if anyone isn't offering the Connections program, or you're offering it and you want another chance to have a facilitator trained, please contact them, because they're doing another training. I think of the final one. Yeah.
Maureen, there's a question from
Yeah.
Blanca. She says, sorry if I missed it, but are there any quick tips on conducting outreach?
Right. Outreach is always the hard one, isn't it? Like I said, social media is good. Word of mouth for other client, like with your participants. And I think giving them a little reward, like, you know, um, if you could bring me, if you can get me a couple of names, I'll send you a $10 gift card. Those kind of things are motivating for people, because especially right now when food is really expensive. Giveaways, great idea. So try to get some donations. If you can, from the community, if you belong to a yoga class, or you're part of some kind of book club, just say, would anybody be interested in providing some giveaways? This is what we're looking for. And you'd be surprised how many people in that group will bring gift bags. I mentioned to one woman that I really like the little baby hats for newborns, and now she's knitting all these hats for me, and she's
Hmm.
knitting blankets for me as well. So women get these gifts when their baby's born. We have a couple of people who donate quilts, and that's where I got the quilt from. And they're beautiful, beautiful quilts. So a nice gift to give somebody, So giveaways are a great thing. Um, and I think getting their input, ask them what's working in the group, and then they'll give you ideas. How do you think I could reach people? Um, sometimes it's street outreach. I'm a big believer in street outreach. It's really back to basics, but you walk down the street in the summer, there'll be mothers out there with their babies. You come up to them and say, hey, your baby is beautiful. What's your baby's name? Oh, I work with moms and babies. Have you ever heard of Connections? And and sometimes if I have some gift cards, I'll say, here's a $10 gift card. We give these out at group. If you want to come and visit me at group, we give out $10 a week or $20 a week, whatever you do. So don't be afraid to approach people, because I think a lot, especially young parents, or parents that are living in poverty, they are unseen in our community. We don't even know they exist. And if we acknowledge them when we see them, they feel part of the community. And it's amazing. Lee and I laugh about this all the time, about how people still don't know about Connections. And we've been over 25 years in the community. And when people come, they say, we've never heard of your program. So, if you give a doctor's offices, try to get your referral form on their computer program. So I was talking to someone else about our free income tax program, and they but then we started talking about Connections, and then they ended up, by the end of the conversation, they were putting our referral on their I forget, like, their platform. So yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that on our board, we've got lots of your key takeaways have been captured there, which is really great. I thought I might mention a couple of the ideas that, listening to you and thinking about our own programs. And people have noted that, always have food. That's something
Yeah,
we need
you
to think
can.
about. Evaluate in caps. Look for places to donate giveaways. Know the resources in the area, and what you said about, follow up, maybe that extra step of, suggesting that a parent connect with a resource or a program in the community, and circling back with them. How did that go?
And they may be
really
nervous
people.
to call, so you could offer after group, I'll call with you if you want.
Yeah,
right?
actually supporting that connection.
Yeah.
So I think we're sort of in the wrapping up phase of our chat with Maureen, but want to just hold space for another moment or two more if anybody has any questions for Maureen. As
one thing I'll
comments.
I'll say,
go ahead.
While I have everybody here, we run a free income tax program for low income families, and we mostly cover Lanark County and Renfrew County, that areas, but we actually do right across the province. We do a number from Toronto, because not all community volunteer income tax programs that are provided by CRA are done on the phone, but we do them on the phone with people. We do over 2,200, I think, last year. So if you have anybody that needs their income tax done, because you need to have that done to apply for housing, apply for Ontario Works, they're really strict on that kind of thing now. You can call us. Our phone number is, I'll just give you the phone number if you want. It's 613. I don't have a poster, so I can't give you the 1-800 number, but it's 613-257-2779, and it's extension 3105. And you can call and have your clients call. We'll put them on a log. A volunteer will call them and do their income tax over the phone. And we do have in-person clinics in our area, but obviously not. And you can also Google the program under Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, and they'll have a list in your community if you have any. So of course, we'd want you to use those first. But if you have a client who really needs their taxes done and you can't find anyone to do it, and a modest income for us is $50,000 for a couple, $40,000 for a single person. And then with every child, it increases. So have them call us and we'll be happy to help them get their income tax done. And they get the return within 10 days, because most of our families we serve, they use H&R Block, which drives me crazy, because they end up paying because they think they're getting that instant money, and they get the money the same day. But normally if they do it online, they'll get it within 10 days. So it's really a great program. And we're happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen. I am going to stop our recording now.